One last dance, guys. All good things must come to an end. And this will be my final episode hosting Locked On Marlins. I couldn't do it without this guy. Delighted to have him on for one last time, the UK GOAT, Shaun Barrett. Tons to get into on my finale on Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins, your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host for one last time. Peter Pratt, hit me up at Miami Marlins _UK. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and there is a YouTube channel, of course, so hit subscribe over on the YouTube channel. Flick on over there right now if you want to see me and the UK go together. One last time. Shaun Barrett in the house. How are we doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Pete. This is Marlins all over, isn't it? There's always change, and as you put it, all good things must come to the end. It's a shame, but I understand the reasons why you're doing what you're doing, and I, for one, will miss you, and I know an awful lot of people that listen on the daily will too.
Yeah, I appreciate it, mate. You're right. It's change is maybe the word of the day, let's say, for this this fun. This is going to be a fun episode, a fun finale, a chance to reflect on what we've accomplished together in the last 3 seasons. It's crazy to think we've been doing this show together pretty much, I've been on the daily, you've been on the weekly, and more in some weeks. So it's been, we've been together through it, mate. It's been a lot of fun. You've almost done, it's averaged out like one episode a week for the last 3 seasons as well, mate. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one looking back. We'll reflect as well on the way the Marlins finished the campaign as well. We'll have to do that as they finished strong, which was encouraging. Before we do that, let's let you know about our episode sponsor, and that's FanDuel. And you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And let's just look back briefly at this Blue Jays series. The Marlins roll into Toronto. The Blue Jays are cooked, obviously. I didn't recognize barely any of the Blue Jays. They look like a shadow of their former selves. I've not watched any Blue Jays baseball in a long time. Barely recognized anyone apart from Vlad, to be honest with you. Nevertheless, the Marlins offense spanked them in the first 2 games, and then game 3, Weathers just dominated them. So from a Marlins team that loses 100 games to end the season with a sweep on the road against Toronto, it must be satisfying for the guys. And I think my main takeaway is, although Skip wasn't there for the final few games, it felt like a perfect ending for Skip Schumacher in the way that I think a Skip Schumacher team would want to go out. What was your main takeaways from that one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with Skip gone and his personal situation, it's, hoping, for him and his family in this time. And obviously the news that now we have confirmed that he's gone for forever for the Marlins. So to see the team rally around and finish strong, it would have been very easy. They'd achieved the 100-loss season, as it were. So to finish, with a bit of energy, it's nice to see. Can you expect that to go into the new season? Probably not. But just having a little bit of fight in them, it gives you a bit of confidence, gives you a bit of hope. And obviously, winning baseball is always fun, and at the moment, a bit of a rarity for Marlins fans. So, yeah, to leave this season with a slightly good taste in your mouth is all you can ask for at this point in the season.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was, definitely a lot of green shoots. Green shoots has been the theme in the last month, really, and I think that's what we saw with this Marlins young group. It's a super young group, and it's going to be fun. Having just spoken to Rod Allen just before this, what he highlighted, and I think which is right, is like spring training is going to be fun for the Fish because there's going to be a lot of jostling going on. There's a lot of guys that will want to, crack the roster for the first time that maybe, haven't been able to do so this year. Like, there's just a lot of young dudes that are trying to make their way in the game. And there's not a lot of veterans that, like, you think back to last season and, spring training, there's no competition. Like, we could have named the opening day roster in December. Avi was inked in, and Jesus and De La Cruz, and everyone's inked in. And this year is going to be completely different. No one's inked in, I don't think, apart from, Xavier Edwards, Jake Berger, and beyond that, I wouldn't say anyone's inked in terms of the offensive position. So spring's going to be fun. What are you hoping for from this offseason, mate? I mean, obviously there's going to be no emergency podcast for us. So there's but I'm not convinced there's going to be many emergencies that we'll need to cover, I think, this offseason. But what are you hoping for the Marlins look to prioritize this offseason?
And we spent the last 2 months, maybe even longer, talking about next year and when will we know what we should expect as far as, are they going to compete? Are they not? I mean, Rod mentioned 2026. I don't know, it might be more wishful thinking than anything else. But I think if the team were, and we've talked so much about this, if the team were willing to go for it, we're not expecting a $150, $200 million dollar payroll. The bare bones is there. The one thing they've got to do to push is not subtract.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, we just can't guarantee that. We don't know that's going to happen. So for me, this offseason, if we're talking about emergency podcasts, I think the one thing I would want is no emergency podcast for Luzardo. That's one of the huge dominoes. And also Sandy, with the injury, they're going to need to have him come back healthy before they even think about trading him to get the value that he would deserve. So, I think that I don't want any big signings. I don't want any big emergency podcasts over they've signed this player or that player, because I just don't expect that to happen. It's subtracting from this team is going to be the one thing I'd like to not see.
Yeah. So no emergency pods for subtractions. We'll see. I'm very interested to see this offseason again. It's just going to be very intriguing to see the way it plays out. I do think the Marlins do add a free agent or two, veteran guys, maybe a pitcher, maybe, an offensive guy just to come in. But I don't think it's going to be a extremely busy offseason, to be honest with you. I think it's just going to be, we've acquired quite a lot of big league ready-ish talent, and that's already here. And so probably headed into spring, it's going to be like, okay, guys, go and get it, go and cook and see what happens. So it's going to be a very interesting spring, no doubt. And it'll soon come around. That's the funny thing. By the time the postseason's out the way, it'll flash by and spring training will be here. So, it does rattle along pretty quickly. When you reflect on the 2024 campaign, do you have one word that you would align to the season generally, if you could choose one, or maybe a handful of words to just summarize the 2024 campaign from the Marlins? For
me, personally, the word would be expected. What happened was exactly what I expected.
Yeah,
I think I was a game or two away from my prediction being spot on for the season, and that was my opinion. As soon as Sandy went down, I knew that this wasn't going to be a push year. So expected. I think I'm probably in a better place as far as expectations and happiness with the squad as it is than I thought I probably would have been at this point.
Yeah,
I think my expectations going into 2025, as far back as the beginning of this season, would be that pitching comes back and we go again. The fact that the team has upgraded, I mean, from what we've seen from X and what we've seen from Bry to a lesser degree, Otto Lopez, one of the best defensive middle infielders in the league. There's these green shoots are the things that have got us excited over the last couple of months. How much do we trust in TonaI? I'm not too sure. Norby coming over, that's a big upgrade for the squad. So this squad is probably in a better place than I thought it would be entering the season, going into 2025. But still, the word for me would be expected. I expected 99 to 100 losses this year, and they delivered on that. They delivered on that first round pick, and that's the key thing. There's no point winning 72 games.
Yeah.
If you're going to suck, you might as well really suck.
Oh yeah, they delivered on that. I mean, the trade of Arias that early said this is the full white flag, and you know you don't want to overperform that situation. But just try and describe to me here, because baseball's a funny game. When there's 162 season, there's ebbs and flows and et cetera, but try and describe to me why the Marlins moved Luis Arias, they moved Josh Bell, they moved De La Cruz, they moved Jashim Jr., all these guys that were like kind of the core, the offensive core. And then post-deadline, the offense was almost like a top 15 offense in baseball. I mean, what the hell? How can we explain this?
It wasn't like a top 15 defense offense. It was.
I know. This is it. It was.
I mean, there's some dead wood there, wasn't there? I mean, Garcia actually, I think he was netting like a 0 F-WAR. It's his best season for the Marlins.
Okay.
Obviously, Tim Anderson was a massive negative. So getting rid of that dead wood certainly does make a big difference. But then you're talking about young guys being given opportunities. Jonah Boyd's going to be 29 soon. So, like, this is if not now, when this was his best opportunity to get major league playing time consistently, and he ran with it. And I think when you're talking about the Marlins and free agents, they're always going to overpay for people that no one else really wanted. I don't think anybody actually was fighting the Marlins for Garcia. We know for sure no one was fighting the Marlins for Tim Anderson. So when you're left with the bottom of the barrel, these guys at the end of their career who were clearly just washed, they were done. Segura add that guy to the list as well. Like any quad A player with hunger is going to outperform these people. And I think there is, like as I've just said, I think there is enough talent, enough young talent on this lineup that there is just I can just about convince myself that this can be a league average offense next year. And that's where the excitement is, because you tie that with the pitching. And of course, in 4 weeks' time, when they start trading people, my hopes will be dashed. But as of today, right now, I'm leaving this season with some optimism.
Gut feel. Are the Marlins taking another high draft pick in the 2026 year?
Yes. And that's simply because I've just said how excited I am. I have over 20 years been pessimistic because the Marlins have earned that from me. But hell if I'm not right an awful lot of times, just by being, what's the worst that can happen? Say that and it will happen, because it does happen for the Marlins all too often. So if you're giving me the opportunity to say, will this really bad thing happen for the Marlins? If I say yes, I'm usually going to be right.
We love the pain, baby. We absolutely love the pain. Just in summary, and we're going to hit the ad then, and then just kind of segue away from, on the field and what could be next year. But I think just in summary, in 2024, just for me, Jet, Mike, personally, it's been difficult to, we're all fans and we want the team to do well. And the season in 23 was just so fun to ride that crest, to be in the mix and just to be relevant as the Marlins in a 162 was completely alien to me. I'd never experienced that before. And it was just amazing. I loved every game. I loved hosting this show. I felt excited to hit record every single day. And then obviously in 2024, it's the complete opposite. I felt like I was trying to find other things to watch than Marlins baseball. And I was dreading almost having to pick up the mic and talk about the team because it was that bad early in the season. And then it starts to become clear what the strategy is, and it started to then have that mental connection around, okay, some of the guys that we really like are going to be gone soon. And it's hard to, make peace with that at times. But you do always come through the back end of that. And we've kind of come back out with that now. And I'm like you. I feel like in 2025, we'll start at 0-0 fundamentally. We'll start at 500. And so, you play 500 ball from there on in, you're going to be relevant. And so, I'm optimistic that the Marlins will be better in 25. I'm convinced they won't be selling in the first week of May. But they may end up being sellers, but they're going to be relevant for longer, in my opinion. But I do think they inevitably end up not really coming close to a 500 club in 2025. I just feel like there's maybe one or two pitchers that are most likely to be moved, and there's a lot of young variants in the offense. I can absolutely see. I mean, if everyone's looking now and going, Xavier Edwards is going to continue to hit 330 or whatever, it's probably not going to happen. I think expect Jonah Bride to be like a 125 WRC plus guy. Probably he won't. He may be above league average, but probably won't be a 125 WRC plus guy. And I just think there's going to be growing pains with all of the guys, as is inevitable in baseball. And there needs to probably be a vet or two around to kind of help steer the ship in the moment. That's kind of the biggest concern I've got is, who's going to be there shaping it? Like, I know Norby's kind of stepped into a leadership role, but Norby's still finding his way. And, someone needs to take the load off as well. So it's going to be interesting. I'm probably an interested observer, I think, Shaun, is how I describe myself at 25. I'm just not sure how it's going to go. And I think a lot's going to continue to change, to be honest with you. I think that's going to continue. So a tough season, though. I think all of us as Marlins fans are probably pretty happy that the season has ended now at this point, and we can now just draw a line under this putrid year. 100 losses. It's not fun. It's not fun for anyone, the players, the media, the fans, anyone. I think it's just great to draw a line and go, right, next time we step back on the field, we're a 500 club. And we're facing the Pirates. And we deserve to beat up on them next time around. So, yeah. Tough year, Shaun, I think, in general, right?
Yeah, tough year. And to a certain degree, I've become quite immune to them. But, yeah, every off season, give it a couple of weeks, and I'll be missing baseball, and I'll bemoan to myself the fact that I didn't watch enough, even though it was painful at times. Well, pretty much painful at all times. But this happens every year when the Marlins are losing 90 to 100 games. I do have to sort of protect myself a little bit and distance myself a little bit from it. But then as soon as it's over, I'm like, I should have watched more, because now I'm going to miss it for 6 months. Then you get into the new year, and then the spring training starts, and you convince yourself again and again and again, like, if they do start trading key pieces to begin the season, I'll still think we've got enough depth, because I have to think that, because I've got 6 months of baseball ahead where I've got to have at least some hope. So yeah, a tough year, and you're right. Like, every new season is a new season. You start at zero, as does everyone else. And you can. It happens enough in baseball, just not to us, where a team you don't expect overperform or get lucky. I mean, that's how you could probably Marlins in 2023. Or a couple of young guys step up. You've got enough talent there that you can see it. That if Norby and Berger and Sanchez all step up and take that next move up the echelon of talent, the team can go from strength to strength. So, yeah, it is a case of just you draw a line, you move on, and you don't forget about 2023, but you certainly don't have to give it too much attention in your mind.
Yeah. I must say, like, it's funny, like, the end of the season tweets and commentary around the Marlins, I think is always interesting to see and gauge. Barry Jackson, for me, a tweet that he put out really caught my eye, actually. So I'll just kind of read it, and we'll then hit the ads, and then we'll kind of segue into a few other topics. But Barry's summary here: the Marlins finished 62-100. Of the 12 full seasons played at the new ballpark, they've had a losing record in 11 of them. This notion that a new publicly financed ballpark would be the panacea, interesting word choice there, but it would be a panacea, allowing them to compete with big spenders, was the biggest local sports fraud of our lifetime. I love that from Barry Jackson, because that's what was sold to Marlins fans back in the day. I wasn't a fan then, but I know that was what was sold, was we're going to move to this new ballpark. It's going to create new revenues, and we're going to then become a big spending market. It's just never happened. It's never happened. And to just hear those stats out loud, 11 of the 12 full seasons in the new ballpark the Marlins have had a losing record is wild. It's wild, but that just shows how bad the Marlins have been for how long. And so to your point, Shaun, we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect ourselves from the Marlins. All the fans do, I guess. But it does show as well how fun 2023 is. That's why we all just embrace it so much, because it was basically an anomaly, a statistical anomaly, the Marlins in 2023. And we all absolutely, rode the wave with that one. So let's hit the ad, and I want to talk about some of our reflections, some of our favorite moments, some of our, times together in the last 3 years, because there's been a lot of episodes, there's been a lot of emergency podcasts, there's been a lot of players signed, traded, there's been all sorts that's gone on. So let's kind of take a time to reflect on some of our favorite episodes, some of our favorite moments, etc., etc. Before we do that, let's firstly let you know about our good friends over at FanDuel. Yes, sir. And producer, one last time, you can get those graphics up for me. Yes, sir. Thank you. Guys, listen up rapido, particularly you NFL fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you can place your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's it. $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do is head to FanDuel.com. Welcome back to Locked On Marlins with me, Peter Pratt, and the UK GOAT, Shaun Barrett. One last dance for us. Final episode for me hosting the show. We'll save the thank yous for the final segment. Shaun, we've done nearly 150 episodes together. I have probably done solo somewhere in the range of 600 to 700 episodes. I can't even take myself to count them all up. It's been a lot. Let's just call it a lot of episodes. When you think back to the times we've had on Locked On in the last 3 years with the Marlins, generally, what kind of sticks out to you as like moments, memories, nuggets that you think back and reflect on? I've got a few, but I wanted to get your sense of what sticks out in your mind.
I've always loved our emergency podcasts. That rush of rush into the microphone to talk about news that's just dropped, that you haven't really got a full grasp on what's actually happening or what's going on, but getting it out there and talking immediately the analysis with you. I've said an awful lot of times to you personally off air that for me, being able to talk baseball with you is my main reason for doing this. I'm not a performer. I'm not somebody that normally puts himself into the spotlight. This is completely against anything that I am. But it's my opportunity to talk Marlins baseball with you, and that's why I've always done this podcast. So those emergency podcasts have always been my favorite, because I'm literally just talking about Marlins news that's just happened with a fellow fan, and we just so happen to record it and put it out onto the internet. I've always said I would happily do this talk baseball with you across Zoom and not even record it. I don't do this to be a performer. I do this just because I enjoy talking baseball with you. Yeah,
for sure, mate. I mean, the emergencies, I'm with you. I'm going to park that a second now, because it is the emergency ones that have been funny over the year. Funny, maybe not the right word, but to your point, when we hit record and we speak about those, we often don't know the full story. We kind of like hop on because it is fresh news. It has happened 1 minute ago. We'll text each other and say, shall we go? Yes, we will. We're always celebrating rock and roll. But often, like, a day later, 2 days later, 3 days later, the actual full story emerges and we look back and go, okay, we may not have had the full information required for a fully informed podcast, but we did our best and we entertained, which is the main thing. Shaun, how do you feel? It's a kind of personal one now, but how do you feel like you've grown like on camera as a podcaster, weekly podcaster, from 3-4 years ago?
Yeah, that's certainly not a way that I would describe myself as a podcaster. But yeah, I think even going further back than the beginning of this, when we were doing Fish Across the Pond, I listen back to some of them and I cringe. I think the biggest differences I've noticed is that I can listen to more recent podcasts over this year and the last year, that I can listen to them and not be like, oh, this sounds bad or this sounds cringeable. I've grown a little bit more comfortable just talking in front of a camera. Because as I said, this is completely against who I am. I am an introvert through and through. So to be able to do this with your support as well, you've been fantastic throughout this whole period. You've always been super positive. I remember the early days I'd message you afterwards and be like, well, it was a rough one. I don't feel very good about that one. And you'd be like, no, you smashed it. And I know you're just saying that to say that, but having you be, there to prop me up when I don't feel great has been fantastic.
Yeah, you've been awesome, mate. Absolutely awesome within this pod. Yeah, prior to that as well. But I must say, the general fan reaction, the listener reaction has always been like super positive. And yeah, like you, mate, I look forward to Mondays. No one says that they look forward to Mondays. Generally, I would say it's normally the day that you're like, oh man, it's Monday. But I always look forward to Mondays because I know Monday, that's our slot. And we'll speak, on a Monday and we'll chop it up. And it's always a great time because the weekend's been a fun-filled baseball weekend and there's loads of content for us to get into. And so I'm like you, mate. I always enjoy the conversation. And it just, to me, I mean, we're supposed to do 30 minutes in these shows. And we always go like 55, 60. Even though I say we're going to go 30, we never do. Today is another one of those episodes, by the way. So, strap yourselves in for the long haul. It's going to be a long one. But yeah, I must say, mate, you as a podcaster, as a baseball mind, it's been wonderful to see your confidence grow. The delivery is coming, it's super sharp now. And yeah, to your point, when we listen back to some of those like super early non-locked on ones, we can laugh about them now. And I always laugh at my own first ones when I did them. And it's all a growth journey, right? It's not easy to do this. This is the thing. And for everyone listening and watching now, what you have to know with this show specifically, and not all shows are like this, I have to call it out, but there are 0 edits in this show. I have not once ever edited Locked On Marlins. Not once. I don't know how to do any video editing. That's why. I don't know how to do it. So what you have to realize is this is truly unfiltered, unedited. This is basically live streamed. And, sometimes, there's the odd gaffe, there's the odd technical difficulty, but, we persevere, no doubt. So, it's definitely been fun and great to see you grow, I would say as well. And it's been just great having you every week chatting Marlins baseball for sure. When I think back to where I started with this show, it's funny to like look back and reflect. And, often this is the problem with these shows when you do it on a daily basis and you kind of, sometimes you haven't got too much content maybe to work with. So you kind of maybe go a little bit extreme in views or you go a bit off-piste. It's fair. One of my first ever episodes was the Avisel Garcia signing. And so, man, oh man, I mean, talk about a podcast that hasn't aged well. I mean, I was waxing lyrical about Avisel Garcia. He was the missing piece. He was going to propel this offense to new time. I mean, boy, oh boy. I mean, it was stunning. So I, accepted the role, went on, started everything. It was brand new to me then, trying to get into the Locked On groove. It was very new. Avisel Garcia signing. Great. Here we go. Trade for Stallings. Okay, here we go. This is fun. Trade for Wendell. This is fun. And then the lockout happened. I was like, why have I agreed to do a daily podcast about the Marlins when the lockout? I knew the lockout was going to happen. Why did I say yes? So that was definitely a tricky period. But we found ways to navigate that, Shaun, I think, in that sense. I mean, there was a legendary, 7-part series talking about trade proposals, a trade with every team that I think we came armed with. I remember one specific comment on YouTube to say, guys, can we end the trade talks? we took every ounce of meat off that bone, no doubt. It was definitely fun. From the emergency side, Shaun, is there an emergency pod that like stands out to you that we did, or like I mean, we've done so many of them, and there's been so much that's changed with this Marlins organization over the past 3 seasons. Is there any that like really stand out to you as like either fun or we were like fully winging it? We could have been. I mean, I don't know. Where's your take?
So there's 2 that sort of are in my mind, and one which I did with you, and one that I wasn't available for. So
Okay.
the one I wasn't available for, I can't remember what it was. I was out for a reason and I couldn't get out of it, and Pablo was traded. And you messaged me saying, you ready to hit this? And I'm like, mate, I can't. I'm out. I was gutted. I knew it was going to be massive. And it was one of your highest viewed episodes. And I just remember thinking, God damn it, all these times I'm available and this is the one time I'm not. And my favorite has to be we just finished recording an episode, I'm sure. Yeah. And then we got off and then the news broke. I think we might have even been still talking in the room. Garrett Cooper had been named as an all-star. And I was just like, we've got to go again. Like, this is your podcast, and I've always just followed your lead. But I was like, no, we have to hit one right here, right now. Garrett Cooper is an all-star. And that's probably one of my favorite moments because I've mentioned his name more than I've named anybody else. And I'm obviously a massive fan of his. So for that to happen and be able to react pretty much live to it that was special.
I knew you were going to say that one because that was you. Like that was one of probably the only episode I would say where you were like, it wasn't me texting you saying, are we ready to hit it? You text me like, I mean, I think we were still speaking, but it was effectively you texting me to say, Pete, I'm ready. Are you ready? I was like, okay, I guess we're doing an emergency pod for Coop. So yeah, I think, when a lot of listeners think of Shaun Barrett or when they think of Garrett Cooper, they'll probably think of Shaun Barrett and vice versa. Like the names are forever intertwined now. They're interlinked and they always will be. It's funny. Anything linked to Garrett Cooper on Twitter, you will always see someone in the comments tagging Shaun Barrett. No doubt about it. What about when you think of like all the different guests that have been on? I mean, there's too many to list out. There's been so many different people that's joined. Can you name one or two that like stood out to you of like your favorite guys to listen to or whatever it might be over the years?
So yeah, I mean, Mish has always been great on the pod because he's not selfish. He'll come on to your podcast and give information that he could, publish himself. Yeah, he's propping you up with those views, with that information. I loved when Glenn was on. As you know, I'm a big F fan, so when he was on, that was great. But not just the big guys, the real pros. I'm a big fan of Takes and Alex. They are literally the polar opposite of me. I say I'm an introvert. I am an introvert. These guys are so extroverted. I enjoy watching them because they do something I know I can't. And funnily enough, they would swear in one sentence more than I have ever done on this pod. I've never sworn once, and I've made a conscious effort of doing that.
Even though I warn them every time before the episode starts. Alex Contreras, you please know this is a PG show. It is a professional podcast for a network, reputable network. I am responsible for the quality of the guests and the language that comes out of them. Please do not swear. Within 5 seconds, Pete, and it's like, I'm like, oh man, here we go. Takes is exactly the same. The boys, they just can't hold themselves back. Very funny, those guys, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love them. They certainly bring in energy to the Marlins fanship that is so very often needed.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, top guys. I think that's the one thing I would say, like when I reflect on, and like in the last couple of weeks, as I've like made the decision to step away, and I wanted to try and bring back as many guests as possible, some returning, some new. And what I realized is just how many people have been on the show and how gracious people are with their time and how open they are to just come on and talk Marlins baseball. And I think that's one of the really positive things about, the relatively small Marlins fan base that exists. Like everyone, wants to come in and, help out, let's say, or entertain and whatever, or give their views. And I think is super encouraging. And what I realized when I put the bat signal out, who wants to come and talk, like DMs were going crazy. And I've got to hold my hands up and say there's one or two that we haven't been able to make it work before we've run out of time effectively. Like there's just so many people saying, I want to come on the show. It's like, okay, great. We'll try our best. But, unfortunately, one or two haven't been able to make it happen. But even so, when I think back to my favorite like guests or episodes and bits and pieces over the years, Alex Contreras always stands out to me, but he stands out to me because as a host, like he was testing me, primarily because I had to try and keep him in the boundaries of what was possible or allowed within Locked On. And I don't think I did a great job of that at times. He was almost uncontrollable as well, which is pretty funny. But I must say there was an episode I did with Danny Rodriguez one time, and I came away from that and I was like, man, Danny really smashed that one. Just when a guest just like comes in and just lays it down, I was like, man, yeah, Danny Rodriguez nailed that one. So that one always sticks out in my mind too. Another funny one, remember going back to like the lockdown vibes. I think we ended up doing a Formula One episode at one point. Like there was nothing happening. So Ethan Badowski and Danny Alvarez, the three of us just came on and talked about that wild finish in the F1 where Hamilton got overtaken by Verstappen on the final lap, and he won the world championship. We basically did a Locked On F1 out of nowhere. I mean, it was probably one of the least listened to episodes of all time, but nevertheless, we found fun with that. So I do look back on that one as well. The most controversial episode will forever be the Craig Mish, players meeting episode, I think. And to be open about that, I didn't know what I was walking into with that one. And, the information was shared, and it was fair to say a few people weren't too happy with the information that was shared. So, a learning curve maybe on that one. But there's been some great ones as well. I think like Victor Mesa Jr. this offseason was a real fun conversation. So there's so many. I think that's the thing with this show. And what I realized is just so many people are happy to come on and happy to talk baseball, happy to talk Marlins baseball. At the drop of a hat, you message them, hey, can you come on tomorrow? Yeah, I can. And so that's super encouraging. Let's hit the final ad. It's my final ad. So I'm going to absolutely make sure I nail this one. And we'll hit that, and then we'll kind of wrap up here and, put the mic to bed, I guess, for, the next couple of months. So, guys, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Gametime. Yes, sir. And Gametime has a brand new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on the great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Do not forget to toggle the all-in pricing. It's a must-do. It means you get to see the total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. Also, make sure you hit those seat views to get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Final segment here on Locked On Marlins with me, Peter Pratt, and the UK GOAT, Shaun Barrett. I would have not have had it any other way. We're finishing strong, no doubt. The question is, what do we do next? That is the question. I actually don't know what the answer is to that at this point. At the moment, I have no plans. People have been asking to say, Pete, what's happening? What I wanted to say and just kind of call out is Locked On Marlins as a show and as a concept, it will continue. There will be a new host. I don't know who that is yet. I have no insight from the network on who they're considering, when the show will continue on. So I honestly have no idea. So we'll see. But the show will continue, guys, and someone will be here for you 5 episodes a week, picking it up. And I'm looking forward. I'm excited to see what the new host does with the show. For me personally, I felt like 3 years was the right time to maybe take a step back, reconsider what I want to do, etc. I think I just want to call out that I absolutely love podcasting about the Marlins. I absolutely love it. And I have no doubt that I'll be back doing something in 25 somewhere. I don't know what, no plans. At the moment, my priority is just take a bit of time off. It's fair to say everyone needs a bit of time off. And that's the problem with Locked On. There are no weeks off. The podcast rolls on. And so I'm looking forward to a little bit of a break, celebrate Christmas the way I do. And then we'll see what the new year brings. Normally dry Jan. I mean, sure, normally in January, we're both going through dry January together. We're kind of like, sponsors of each other, kind of propping each other up to keep going through dry Jan. So we'll have to find a way to navigate that this year. But yeah, we'll see what's coming. So that's just to call out like what's next. At the moment, undecided. But Shaun, I wanted to just say to you on the show while we're recording that I wanted to firstly call out how amazing you've been on this show and how much better you've made me as a baseball fan, as just the understanding of the game, having a different opinion, understanding that there's different opinions and there's balance. And I must say, I feel like it's been almost like the perfect duo on this show, where positivity has a bit of balance, statistical analysis with just pure fan eyeball emotion. I feel like it's been a really good blend, mate. So I wanted to call out to you just how immense you've been on this show, how much I've improved because of you. So I want to take that opportunity to share that. I know we're going to record other stuff in the future for certain, wherever that may be. I don't know, but it will be somewhere because, we both just enjoy doing this. We do it for free. Like, we do it without recording. But seeing as we get together, we may as well hit record, right? Why not?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Pete. The kind words. As I said earlier, you've always been super encouraging and supportive of my work here. And yeah, it's you giving me this platform to talk about the Marlins baseball. As I said, I don't take the platform lightly. I understand that this is a really big gig, but as I said, I do this simply to talk baseball with you. And talking about having differing opinions, like, I know that in media that's how it works. You have one person say one thing and you have the other person argue the other side. We've never done that. We've never purposely said, right, I'm going to take this side. Like, we don't plan. Like, I see the rundown as soon as we hit record, because that's when I first know what we're going to talk about. Yeah. So there's no contrivedness. If I disagree with you, it's because I disagree with you. If I agree with you, it's because I agree with you. Mm-hmm. We don't ever try and create this tension of you're going to be positive, I'm going to be negative. If I'm negative, it's because that's not what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, exactly. You're giving a little peek behind the curtain here about my pre-show preparation. Some would say, Pete, you must plan this hours in advance. And we turn up and I start typing the rundown in front of you. There's some of the other times. But the funny thing is, too, the amount of times we have a rundown and we actually go completely off script as well. Because that's the beautiful thing about podcasting with someone else, where you will take me into an area that I haven't considered, or you will make me start to consider something different. And the show will just, it will live and breathe, in real time. And that's kind of how it works, which is why it's great doing it, with someone like yourself. And, again, I thank you for that. So guys, we're going to wrap it up there. 45 minutes in. 45 minutes feels like a standard UK Go episode. So I wanted to finish by just thanking everyone for tuning in and engaging with the show in the past 3 seasons. What I've realized is that it's impossible for everyone to agree with every one of your opinions at every moment. It's just impossible. My main goal coming into Locked On Marlins was firstly, be able to do it because it was a big ask. It was also, I felt the pressure taking over from Aram Layton, who is one of the best sports podcasters out there. Take away baseball. He's one of the best sports podcasters out there, in my opinion. So taking over from Aram was certainly high pressure. How can I deal with the time zone? How can I fit all this in? How can I do 5 episodes a week and do it justice? I had a lot of doubts, a lot of concerns about taking on this show from where it was. Used to do weekly on a Tuesday with, 4 British guys. Taking on this, it was a big ask. But I feel proud of what I delivered. I feel really proud that the show has grown year on year. The feedback in the main is positive. I feel like the show is in a better place from where I picked it up from. And so for that, I'm really proud of that. And there's been episodes, I'm sure, which maybe were off the mark. There's maybe been wild takes. There's maybe been poor takes. Listen, at times I was getting fact-checked by Skip Schumacher last season with poor information. You're like, so listen, Skip would fact-check me now and again. Other people would fact-check me now and again and let me know where I was maybe slightly out of line. And so I think that's the beauty. You take on feedback and, you go from there. But my goal with this show was to entertain. It was to entertain people following the Marlins. And listen, a lot of non-Marlins fans listen to this show as well. So that's my main purpose, was to entertain. I wouldn't say to educate. I think that's probably where Shaun kicked in, to be honest with you. But definitely to entertain and to have fun with it. And I think if that was my purpose, I feel confident that I delivered on that. And so I feel proud that, we did what I wanted to achieve. So with that being said, let's call it a day. Shaun, for the 58th time this episode, I really appreciate everything you've done for this show. And I appreciate everyone for tuning in. All of the guests, and there's been so many of them, there's way too many to name, but every single one of the guests that's joined the show, engaged with the show, I appreciate every single one of you. I'm going to miss the show. I'm going to miss doing this. It's going to feel very strange tomorrow, Tuesday, the 1st of October, around 9 p.m. UK time. I'm going to look around and think, what am I going to do? I'm probably going to watch a postseason game, but apart from that, I will be missing it. I will deeply miss doing the show. But for the final time, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. I will look forward to seeing you soon. I will see you on Twitter. I will remain there, but I hope to be back soon podcasting. I will be back podcasting about the Marlins. Locked On Marlins will return soon as a new host is in place. In the meantime, stay in touch. Speak soon.